Have you ever been so close to a significant other you literally wanted to crawl inside them? I've had this statement said to me many times throughout my life, and to date, I am undefeated in the parking lot of not letting somebody crawl inside my meat suit. But I'm only 33, so maybe the next person. In the events of Together, it's all cellular adhesion problems and borderline sentient muscle movements. As Millie and SoundCloud rapper over here moved from the city to a cabin in the woods on a single teacher's salary, as his music career is going to blow up any day now, they find that another couple had gone missing in the area. However, they are not so much missing, just spending way too much quality time together, I guess. As the Church of Unitology looms underground, an exposure event would take place that would ultimately, what it does to humanity would turn every event in sort of like a menage a gata. Is that how you say four in French? It's pretty close. Being exposed to a mystery liquid is never ideal. Many DeFranco and Millie would find themselves inexplicably drawn to one another for reasons beyond their control. But what exactly is happening on a cellular level to even allow for this in the first place, as well as what's going on with their draw towards one another? Let's discuss that in today's episode covering Together. As per usual, up on screen, you'll see a timestamp to get to the summary. Also, if you enjoy this content, be a super cool guy and subscribe so we can finally hit like 1.2 million subs, and then eventually 2 million subs. We kick off our story with Neon and like 12,000 production companies. Jumping over to the woods, someone is calling out for Carrie as quadrupeds bark. It appears to be a search team of sorts looking for a couple that went missing in the area. Calling out for Simon as well, no Garfunkel is to be found. As they search, there is a hole in the ground as it leads way down. I've actually found a spot like this in North Alabama. I suppose after watching this, I will decidedly not be entering the hidey hole. A pair of dogs are down there vibing as they look deeper into the cave system towards a hole with water. Drinking from that water, that's probably not good. Never drink from a mystery water source, but dogs do have stronger immune systems in their guts, and dirty water sources really don't affect them, along with specialized enzymes in their saliva that are designed to kill bacteria. There's also like many other advantages as well, but the major drawback being decreased lifespan. As one man then calls out to his dogs, they are posted up, completely not listening to him. Taking them back home, they just sort of keep staring at one another as the guy then goes inside. The dogs, however, continue looking at one another as yelping and whimpering can be heard later. The guy then gets woken up as he heads out there to where the dogs are bed down for the evening. Walking in, use the flashlight, dude. Like, pointing the flashlight at the ground and not even looking, it's like F-tier search ability. This guy was part of the search team. Anyways, seeing something, he raises his flashlight as he spots his dogs have completely fused together. Good lord. Jumping over to Philip DeFranco's brother, I think, he's looking through photos of him and his girlfriend, at least that's what I imagine, as they are now at their farewell party. Given that he's having a moment here, his girlfriend comes in and checks on him. Minnie DeFranco then grabs his records and heads back to the party. That's pretty retro. He's self-releasing some music instead of, doing it with a label, as his friends tell him he needs to get on a label or nobody will ever notice him. Basically, he's gonna do this SoundCloud rapper style. I get it. Blaze your own trail, but bro, you're 35 at this point, which is not a knock at his age. Again, given I'm 33, so it does go by quick. One day you're 21, you're like, ah man, 30's so far away. It is not! His girlfriend then asks her friend, do you think he knows? While blowing up any day now, gets invited into the band to play guitar. Look at that, he might actually blow up any day now. Giving a speech later on about the move, maybe soon-to-be fiance takes an arrow to the knee and proposes. Actually, in Skyrim, that is what they're referencing. They didn't actually take an arrow to the knee. When they, got married, they would drop down to the knee to get married, right? So, because they're married, they had to take on less dangerous tasks like guard duty while their cousin was out fighting dragons. And now you know, and knowledge is power. She doesn't have a ring though, so it seems a bit like a spur of the moment type of deal. Also, okay, look, just for like 3 seconds. First, if you don't actually have a ring, maybe you're not really in a position of power on that one. Granted, I know two people, one of them proposed at a Dairy Queen without any ring, and hey, they got 2 kids and are still married, so what the hell do I know? Second, this is sort of like asking someone to marry you at a Cowboys game or something. There's a lot of pressure in front of others, and the team is still going to lose, making it even worse. I don't know, you gotta be absolutely sure they're going to say yes if you're gonna ask in front of a crowd of people. I don't know. Anyways, so he says he does want to marry her, but it was awkward. This turns into one of those arguments at night where you're just in bed staring at the dark ceiling, arguing. Those are always a good time. She says he's been so distant, so your move was to ask him to marry you. Yes, that should fix everything, right? This is like having an offspring to save the marriage. It's just a bad idea. So she rolls over, and so does he, as then they go to sleep. She starts talking absolutely crazy, as on the other side of the bed, he sees themselves except older. Well, I guess it's themselves. Maybe it's themselves, but it'll kind of make sense later. Trying to go under the covers to escape the encroaching old age, I guess. Actually, I don't really even know if this is about old age. It's about probably what he saw. It's trauma. But as he pulls up the covers, sweet God, something's in there with him. Waking up in the rattiest t-shirt I've ever seen. Brother, tank tops in the morning over Carhartt shirts. You gotta let the guns out to attract the girlfriend, you know, or fiance in this case. And now that monetization has been nuked because I've called it what it actually is, they have already moved into this house out in the wilderness as Milli Vanilli over here is unpacking the trailer alone. Okay, any woman I have ever been with, if we've moved in together, they are waking me up to move stuff. They are not just gonna, oh, let him sleep. No, they're gonna be like, dude, get up, we gotta move some crap. So I don't know how she let him sleep in, but not knowing how to use a saw, it scares SoundCloud over here, as he's a man of few skills. As he starts smelling something, that's just a stroke. But if one must ask, if it smells like burnt toast, are you having a stroke? Probably. Pulling down the light fixture and then putting his hand in the hole, that's smart. He pulls down an entire deep-fried rat that is somehow still alive, which, look, it's actually a rat king. What is a rat king, you may be asking? Basically, it's when multiple rats become entangled by their tails and then end up dying. For a while, this was actually considered a myth, but it has since been confirmed through videos that it does, in fact, exist. And speaking of rats, man, what a segue. So hear me out on this one, because today I'm talking about a game I actually play, and if you stay to the end, there will be a pretty lucrative reward. And now, we're going back to my childhood, which we all know, Leonardo was absolutely goated. Raid Shadow Legends is partnering with Paramount to bring the most radical crossover ever. Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, April, and Shredder come to the game as legendary champions so you can live out your nostalgic childhood fantasies. So yeah, basically, someone did need to punch Shredder in the head for quite some time, and now that we can actually do that, retribution will be swift. Starting from August 21st through November 13th, you can get your hands on the champions starting with Michelangelo, but the event ends November 13th, and you must start by October 30th to collect the champions. Kick off your collection with Michelangelo, just log in for 7 days to unlock this legendary turtle who spreads debuffs, taunts enemies with trash talk, and dodges their attacks. Plus, you can fuse Donatello, a top support who heals allies and reduces cooldowns, summon Leonardo, Raphael, April, and Shredder through a limited time event, challenge Shredder in the events dungeon to earn the exclusive Chronophage gear set. Players can collect all 6 TMNT Champions to unlock a special bonus reward, which is better than pizza. If you haven't started playing yet, then what are you waiting for? Click the link in my description or scan my QR code to get amazing bonuses available only via my link. You will immediately get a huge starter pack with Epic Champion Anax from the Undead Hordes faction. You'll get another starter pack after reaching level 15 with Epic Fayne. New players can pick 1 promo code out of 5 for a legendary of your choice. Legendary Champion Green Warden Ruach, promo code Treehugger until October 22nd. Legendary Alice the Wanderer, promo code Get Alice, available until December 31st. Legendary Tuhanarak, promo code Desert Queen until October 31st. Legendary Sun Wukong Monkey King, promo code Monkey King, available until October 31st. Legendary Tholan Foulbeard, promo code Demon Slayer, available until December 31st. New players can pick 1 promo code out of the 5 for a legendary of your choice. Which, let's be real here, go ahead and pick Monkey King, because who doesn't want to fight alongside a Monkey King? Because he's a monk. These champions are only available after downloading via my custom link or QR code only 48 hours after downloading with my link. If you go directly to the app stores or use any other link to download, you won't get these packages that Raid's team gave me. So make sure to download with my link, then use the promo code in-game. Come find me under the name Roanoke and join my clan Croatoan. Completely yeeting it back into the yard, ethereal music begins to play. The millster now appears to be a teacher, which how they afforded the house is crazy to me. Like, seriously, let's be real. A house of this size, even in a smaller town, is gonna run you like $400,000 in the current market because everything is way overinflated and our currency is a nightmare. Millhouse then gets asked by Carol if she stole that tea bag from the tin. Carol, you're about to get teabagged if you don't stop hogging all the tea. Not by me, but by Millie. Need to clarify that one. Jamie then talks to Millie about coming out there as he's a part of the hiring committee. Jamie then asks if she's explored much, talking about the town, but Jamie is already coming off a bit home-wreckery, I guess? Back home, brother of the son of the Green Goblin is playing guitar as Millie then tells him to come to bed, but he has to learn these parts of the song so that he can play in his band. It's not a phase, Millie. I'm blowing up any day. I'm 31. Okay, I gotta stop that joke. He does, however, promise to go on that hike with her tomorrow, though, so, there's that. And as if on cue, probably because it's a movie, they commence their hike the next day as they run into the end of the trail almost immediately. Should have downloaded all trails. Not sponsored by them, but they have really good, like, trail mapping type of deal to make sure you don't get just straight up lost. Been doing a lot of solo hiking lately. It's been pretty great. Just gotta not end up on some YouTuber's compilation video of YouTubers who went missing after saying they liked solo hiking or something like that. It's bound to happen. It's not gonna happen. I carry bear mace and, other things to stop man. Entering the area off the trail, SoundCloud then finds a bunch of bells as he says they can't turn back now, it's so nice out. That's the neat part, you actually can. And due to his transgression of assuming it was nice out and also doing the stupid thing, which was telling Mother Nature about it, it immediately begins raining. In the confusion of walking, SoundCloud falls into a hole from earlier, and instead of screaming, bro, why don't you start looking on, look for something to hold on to so you can pull yourself out. Just throwing it out there. But not listening to Roanoke, he continues falling into the hole as they have no signal as he laments, oh no, all my demos were on my phone. It was basically me just playing the opening, intro to, Metallica, Fade to Black, but whatever. She's fine, by the way. Malaria says it feels crowded in there. Oh, it's much more crowded in there than you might imagine. Finding wood on the walls and bells everywhere, he decides to build a fire and wait it out. She questions why he has a lighter, which, why not? Are you not supposed to carry a lighter when you go into the woods? I mean, it seems like a good idea to have one just in case. Also, I don't know, man. Building a fire in a cave might seem like a good idea to stay warm, but carbon monoxide buildup is a very real threat. Sitting next to the hidey hole, New Goblin 2.0 had actually brought a bottle of wine out there as he drinks from the hidey hole because he's also thirsty. Absolutely not. Great way to get dysentery. You should probably just consider that to be stagnant water, which, bad. Granted, it's groundwater, so maybe in theory you could treat it as a well. I wouldn't, but seriously, you can survive for 3 days without water. You'll be fine. So building that fire, they then light up a J and share it. SoundCloud then starts dropping trauma, which you think would have probably been discussed earlier in their relationship, considering now they're getting engaged. But basically, his old man tore apart his room asking about the smell. His dad found a dead rat in the ceiling, which freaked out SoundCloud here because he'd actually gotten used to the smell. He was essentially breathing in dead rat. Later, he smelled the same thing at his neighbor's house, which also, you're not breathing in dead rat, you're breathing in microbes smell. That's breaking down the dead rat. Basically, anyways, he found a woman who had snapped and went to bed with her husband who was already well past his expiration date. So that affected Minnie DeFranco quite a bit. I remember when my dad literally disassembled my room. I went to college one day, and I came back and my room had been added to the garage. Classic dads, am I right?
My dad's fucking awesome.
My dad's still a baller, though. That night, they seriously slept in the cave. Are y'all, for real? It was just a little bit of rain. Something begins approaching SoundCloud as he's sleeping. Whatever it is, he is feeling it, Mr. Krabs, and the walls are breathing just like him. Man, what was in that joint? Millie is hyperventilating next to him as in they wake up. They overslept in a wet cave. Their legs are stuck together as in they pull it apart. Looks painful. Also, everything is sticky. This is literally the inside of my 67 Impala in the middle of July. Your skin just sticks to everything. All right, so they just casually climb out of the cave, by the way. Again, it was just a little bit of rain. I would have rather walked through all of that to go to sleep in my bed than sleep in this cave. Interesting thinking there, guys. But they do have wounds on their legs from where they were touching, which is very intriguing. Getting back home, again, they made it super easily out of there. Asking for a back rub, SoundCloud then starts getting a little lost in the sauce as he starts kind of going in a little rough. Subscribe to my podcast over here, starts sweating as then she leaves to go to town while we get the shower scene. Passing out in there, he starts getting thrown around the shower like an infant in the dryer, which appears to be based on Millie's movements in the car depending on where she's turning. It appears to be a connection type of deal, inexplicably drawn to her maybe, which, yes, we all know that feeling. It's actually quite annoying. Due to this, Minnie DeFranco then goes to a doctor as he's told he's spiraling. Yes, that feeling. Quite annoying. He's then prescribed a muscle relaxer as he's informed of the couple that had gone missing prior to them. Yes, very good. That should calm down his anxiety right now. Good thinking, doctor. Now, where did I put that bedside manner? Heading home, SoundCloud investigates the missing couple and looks through their pictures of them. Okay, well, full stop for a minute. How did Millie afford this house? These are like mahogany wood walls. Looking at Minnie DeFranco's last post, it's basic of, taking the plunge and hearing a knock on the door. Oh great, Jamie's here. Meeting Tim the boy partner, as Millie had called him. Millie's words, again, not mine. SoundCloud then tells Infidelity Option about the cave, as he tells them about the church out there of New Age people, and it collapsed and now it's just subterranean. Home Record then tries to pour Millie some more wine at their own table, as they have a passive argument in front of them. Jamie then hugs Millie, as SoundCloud completely calls this entire thing he's friendly. Look, all I'm saying, listen, this is gonna sound interesting, but your gut instinct on something can be more correct than you think it is. Just pay attention to that. Anyway, SoundCloud then starts making out with Millie as it gets hot and heavy immediately, as then he bites her. He says something is off as she tells him to stop his excuses. I'm not really sure how biting is an excuse. You're gonna sit there with a straight face and tell me biting is not something people do? Absolute malarkey. Anyways, apart from that, I probably need to preface, I don't bite people. This is getting really weird. So they go to bed that night as a noise can be heard. Millie starts saying he's on her hair, as then she flips on the light and sees he's eating her hair. What in the name of all that is holy? Seeing he took a nice chunk out, might be time to go to the doctor and figure out why this man is exhibiting signs of pica. Pulling hair out of his teeth the next morning. Look, I get it. It could just be me because I got that dog in me, but most people want to be close to their partner or feel like they can't get close enough. Don't lie to yourself, you have felt it. Well, probably most of you. Some of you, including people I've known, probably don't feel that way, but literally eating her hair might be a bridge too far. Phrasing. So grabbing his guitar the next day, she says she doesn't think he should go. He says he can't miss the train, as then she takes him to the station so he can do his gig with the band. He's going to be a rock star, he just has to grow out his hair and do the whole emo swoosh thing. She tells him to not worry about coming back tonight and says maybe some space would be good. So escape and be free. Given infidelity parasite just down the road, I'm not 100% sure about that. This would seem a little too sketch to me. Then again, sometimes you just gotta trust people because at the end of the day, they're gonna do whatever it is they're gonna do. So as she bails out, SoundCloud starts crashing out hard as the train shows up. Mad dogging the train for some reason, we now jump over to Millie's job. SoundCloud left all of his stuff and is straight up tweaking at this point. A little girl drew a picture of her fused dog as SoundCloud then looks like your standard Seattle resident heading towards the school. Not that those are related, but, he just looks like a standard Seattle resident. Which actually, if you're in Seattle in late October and you see me out there, I don't know, wave to me, as it'll confuse me because there's no way I'm gonna remember saying this in a video in September. Zero chance. So anyways, Millie then calls back to her friend as she says her boyfriend is a 35-year-old who says he's going to be a rock star. Again, blowing up any day now, just give him some time. SoundCloud now arrives and starts making out with Millie as they go into a stall to get frisky. And I mean, dang, y'all, at her new job? We all have the fantasy to hook up at your girl's job, but to actually do it is crazy. I'm assuming, you guys do. I, for one, okay, never mind. Joke has run its course, moving on. So we get that scene as, the old saying, I've been advised also not to continue that joke. So as he tries to evacuate, he literally gets stuck. Outside of the stall, a kid then knocks on the door as they are quite literally frozen in place, as sweet lord, I did not need to see any of this, successfully freeing their entanglement. Oh good, Jamie is here, explaining that the bathroom is for little boys. Little bro over here is a complete snitch. Get out of here, Timmy. Jamie now tells her she might want to clean up, as for some reason, SoundCloud immediately puts his foot down way too early out of the stall. Like, bro, you could have waited 3 more seconds. The first rule of doing stuff in areas you're not supposed to be doing stuff is you don't give away your hiding spot immediately. This entire episode is weird. So this turns into an argument at home, as, one may do. She brings up to him being a non-rock star as she says she's gonna go clean up his mess, which, okay, this is technically both y'all's mess, I believe. You both agreed to put Percy in the playpen at work, so you can't blame him for that. Walking over to Infidelity Man, not a great plan. She apologizes to him as she starts crying as it's been a stressful day and she had a stressful fight with a stressful SoundCloud. How are teachers affording these houses? Talking to Jamie about moving out there, yeah, I don't know, maybe confiding in a dude who appears interested is not exactly the move here. He brings up how humans had 4 arms and 4 legs and 2 faces, but Zeus, being humanity's biggest hater, split us into 2 parts. Zeus was truly a punk ass. Jamie brings up how when he moved there were 2 of them. He existed on his own, and it turns out actually Jamie misses his husband. So maybe not an infidelity partner, but he's also wearing 2 rings. SoundCloud then makes the scene in the yard as they then head back home. Holding Millie's hands, this is kind of turning into a real issue. Checking his computer that night, SoundCloud's band is angry as he never showed up because he was the guitar guy, so I don't think it's gonna sound that good. So basically, he's fired. Calling out to Millie about going to bed, she's already in bed, passed out. He apologizes to her as then he goes and hangs out by the salt lamp, taking his pills before heading back to his office. Looking through the couple's post, he then starts inspecting elements as he can hear creaking. Checking the coordinates of the picture, they went missing right near them. He then sees the bells in the background of their pictures, as well as then the internet goes out for some reason, completely unrelated to anything, just bad timing. Millie now makes the scene, smashing her face into the door, giving herself a bloody nose. This freaks out SoundCloud, as I wouldn't be opening that door either, as Bro then starts levitating, as so does she. Opening the door, she breaks in as then he smacks her and wakes her up. Talking at the table the next morning, she asks, what if it's a seizure? Well, I guess it's not the next morning, it's that night. SoundCloud informs her something is going on. He brings up how when their minds get tired, their bodies take over. They're physically drawn to one another, and she gets up to leave as she stops, which is exactly what he wanted her to do. So, they are mentally connected. She then says that doesn't make any sense. It's a thirst in your bones, a specific type of bone. He says they are sick and he needs answers, determining that neither of them should be there when the parents come on Sunday. I mean, as long as you guys wear hazmat suits, you should be totally fine, right? Looking at the table, it starts bleeding. Well, you know, doing something. They then go to bed in different rooms as he leaves the door open. Probably should lock that. As he sleeps though, he wakes up being dragged through the hallway away from his bed. His bones start cracking as he moves, which is a bit odd as his muscles are actually undulating like a worm towards the door. Millie is also on the other side of the door. Oh God. Okay, so she starts dragging herself towards him as well. They clasp hands as they start fusing their bodies together. He tells her about the muscle relaxants as then they start fusing with one another rapidly. Opening the pills together, they start taking all of them and snorting them. Got a real party going on here. As they do, they push each other away by their feet, using them to separate their arms. Okay, so again, it's a full body condom. The next morning, they didn't actually fully separate from one another, and if the pills wear off before they can get fully separated, they're screwed. Using the saw, they begin sawing through their arms and freeing one another. After that super happy fun time, they eat some chicken as they realize they only have 2 pills left. Millie wants to go to the hospital as they have decided to split up, literally. SoundCloud now runs inside and decides he needs to go back to the cave. Millie then heads over to Jamie's, who has the same bell as back in the cave system. See, I knew he was in on it. I just never told you guys. You gotta trust me on that. Either that or I suspected he was in on it. Raiding his house, she then hears a noise in the back. Meanwhile, SoundCloud has entered the sticky cave. Phrasing. Millie then heads to the back of Jamie's house as he is playing a video of the church. SoundCloud now starts finding all the paintings and walls and the fusion of humans. 4 arms, 4 legs, and 2 faces. It's Jamie and his husband's wedding as they enter the cave system and drink the water of fusion. As they do, they willingly fuse with one another, Gogeta style. Jamie is creepily standing there saying it as, you know, it's the happiest day of his life. Meanwhile, SoundCloud gets stuck as Jamie says the connection is the best part. The couple missing from earlier are down there as they call out to Millie as well, going to call this the failed fusion, so most definitely the Viku version of fusion. Jamie then cuts Millie's arms as she punches him and he begins changing. The dynamic duo in the cave then asks for help as they appear to not be doing so hot as SoundCloud is able to escape the cave. As he rests, Millie is running from Jamie's. Grabbing a pocket knife, Millie then returns home at the same time as SoundCloud. She tells him not to come any closer as their bodies are connected. SoundCloud says he can't fight forever as then he tells her to just let go. Taking an arrow to the knee, he then proposes as he has officially allowed himself to get lost in the sauce. He tells her to close her eyes as he then goes to take himself out. Seeing her bleeding, her blood is attempting to make its way to him. That radial artery got pierced. That is not ideal for longevity. She then tells him to make her final post as BRB dying as the blood is making its way up to his eyes. She flatlines out at this point, or at minimum passes out, and given the events you just had, does that mean like a piece of you is now dead? Heading inside the house, she then wakes up as he was able to stop her bleeding. So I guess they kind of just completely stopped fighting at this point. Putting on Spice Girls, they decided to just sort of vibe out and fuse together. Would this technically be a dangerous level of codependence? Engaging in the Namekian fusion? I don't know, man. Looks pretty painful to me. Also going to be difficult to explain that to mom and dad when they show up for brunch. As they fuse together, the internet comes back as their last post was "We took plunge." Fast forwarding, the parents have arrived to hang out as the Unitology church bells ring and Milk Cloud answers the door and thus concludes together. And welcome to the science portion. I see you survived the Raid Shadow Legends ad. People really take that stuff personally. Inquiring minds wish to know, but regardless, the thing to understand about Together is that this is actually something we already see in real life, which is technically speaking, absolutely terrifying. Big props to the PhD scientist I talked to in the lab back in the day with her specialization in a particular viral infection that she pretty much said, yeah, it'll never be cured. Yeah, she could be right depending on the level of gene editing our species may be capable of later down the line concerning CRISPR usage, but for specifically the topic we're talking about today, as per usual, I think we should start from the beginning to establish the symptomatic presentation of this mystery illness because yes, I do believe it to be an illness rather than something flat out like alien technology or some supernatural intervention. Also, Zeus can get dunked on. And this is pretty much standard for the channel. I think I've mentioned it like 5 times in the history of me being on YouTube of like, yeah, this is just straight up supernatural or something to that point, but the reality is it's not all that common. And you really have to consider maybe our species just doesn't understand it yet. As always, think of bringing someone back from like the Middle Ages and turning on a TV. First, they would look at the TV as a portal, which is magic. Then they would also look at the people inside the TV as probably you trapped them there, and then the remote would be a wand. So it would all be supernatural even though it's just technology based on electricity and radio signals. And now you're ye old fist fighting a peasant from the 1400s. So my advice, don't do that. But you can do whatever you really want to at the end of the day. I'm not here to harsh your mellow. Getting back on topic before my undiagnosed ADHD takes control once again, the tangents are becoming more clear as to why they exist the older I get. There are a few telltale signs as to what's taking place when a person drinks this mystery liquid down in the hidey hole, and it's not just predicated on an ancient technology. And for this, we need to visit the idea of what exists just below our feet in several different ways. It's not just dirt down there, and it's not just rock. There is so much biomass under the ground, it would drive you insane to actually attempt to figure it out. And somebody did, and then they went subsequently insane. Because think about it for a moment. On the surface, there exists biomass, obviously, but the cross-section of how much, so to speak, is on one layer. Within the actual ground, you can take a cross layer of soils and rock from 5 to 10 kilometers, I guess in heathen units, or in the based lords units, 3.1 to 6.2 miles deep, and find all forms of life because this range is considered to be quite habitable. Some life that could be so far removed from what's up on the surface, it would look completely alien. Think of it like troglodytic species living in caves, never having seen light before. They do look like aliens. But apart from the macro multicellular species that could exist in the crust, there is an idea that probably they're much less prevalent. Really what I want to focus in on are the extremophiles, but also other potential pathogens that kind of are laden all throughout. It's important to understand that it is believed that around 59% of all life resides under the feet of humans or in the horrific dark soils of the ocean. You know, under the anglerfish held territory. Can you imagine a worse fate than that? Which, I mean, okay, yeah, you're right. Living under the soils of France could be worse, arguably, but it's at least got to be a close second, if not tied for first. Within these soils, you have pathogens such as parasites, bacteria, and more specifically, viruses. And before you click off, I promise you don't know where I'm going with this one. I get to give you an existential crisis because of what pathogens, like they're actually capable of multinucleating your cells. So just hang in there, sports fan. It's going to get much worse. So as we take a look at the origins of this process, the first thing we notice is that, again, it's underground. Given the water hole looks like it goes relatively deep, there's really no way of knowing how far back into a cave system it goes, how deep into the crust it may penetrate. The reality is there may be massive, just insane chasms below your feet right now. Being in Alabama with limestone pretty much prevalent everywhere, which dissolves in water, the thought is not lost on me. Anyhow, separated by eons of time potentially, the reality is it's not so much the water itself that's the issue, but what resides within that water. Upon drinking, a person will exhibit some fairly interesting symptoms that clearly show what is happening, but it goes past the process of the body itself and begins to enter the territory of potential sentience. At least to a degree. Shortly after SoundCloud drank the water, it's pretty clear that night he was already beginning to show neurological symptoms, but his body was also beginning to alter as well. It should also be known that Millie Rock consumed the water, so she's not just separated out from this infection. And this is why you never just drink water from a mystery source, more so one that is exposed to a clear opening of a cave. Just imagine all the animals that have peed in there. I mean, that's just asking to become fused as a mass of limbs and faces and eyes at that point. I mean, honestly, it's your fault. The first sign of things to come is that the legs being somewhat fused together as they wake up. Not so much the undulating muscle that we saw earlier, but this kind of begins to show that applied pressure and time indicates that the infection is beginning to spread. This would indicate that the membranes of the body's cells are beginning to break down to a degree, but not likely in the way that you might think that they would. See, for life to continue, there needs to be a controlled area and an uncontrolled area, something that delineates the life itself. In this way, the cell membrane serves as intrinsically important and serves a purpose, as without it, there would be no barrier to delineate life from non-life. Similar to how you can imagine a house, right, with your head, maybe even spin the house, I don't know. Can you imagine a house? Apparently some people can't, but if you don't have walls and a roof, there is no house there, no matter how much you want there to be a house right there. Simplistic concept, yes, but vitally important to what we were discussing. Anyhow, with these barriers pressed against one another, a literal fusion of the dermal layers begins to take hold. Now, what we have seen is that there is like a stickiness to the cave itself. Phrasing. This would indicate that there is a layer coating the inside of the cave that is very likely hailing from the same pathogen that exists within the water as well. So at first, this pathogenic glue, I guess you could call it, appears to be acting on the cell membranes themselves, given the exposure topically to it. And I have no idea, but I just got a massive case of deja vu writing that, possibly from the Thing discussion years ago. So after ingesting the pathogen, however, not only is the outside of their body being actively worked on by the coating within the cave itself, but neurologically, their body will begin to respond as well. And this is where it's sort of, I don't know, at first, showing if you get this stuff on the outside of your body, then likely it's only an issue of hacking off that area to prevent the infection from spreading. So, I don't know, go like full potato peeler status on it. Not saying that is the best method, but at least you could get it off of you. However, once inside, it will begin having profound effects on every single system within your body. Again, given SoundCloud drank the Kool-Aid first, which I know, it was Flavor Aid, his body would have been exposed first, meaning that his symptoms would actually have presented a little more hardcore from the drop. Millie Rocking drank it later, so hers were really not far behind, but far enough that it's a little noticeable that there's a lag in between the two. But with that, we also need to discuss the difference between the male and female immune systems, at least for a moment. So, I think women are gonna laugh at us, but you know man flu? There's around 120,000 women that watch this channel, given my metrics, but it is a real thing. Men's immune systems typically will react more strongly concerning inflammation. Women actually will react more strongly concerning the innate immune system and their adaptive abilities when confronting pathogens. It's quite interesting, actually, but it makes total sense. Given that they are the ones who hold offspring for 9 months, for their genetics to continue, their response to potential infections needs to be stronger. However, symptomatically, their own bodies present less strongly given their sex hormones being estrogen, and this actually boosts their immune system, whereas testosterone will actually have an inhibitory effect on our immune system. So what does that mean exactly? Well, we could totally get into the weeds here, teasing out the differences between male and female immune systems, but it essentially means that men, due to higher inflammatory responses, are much more likely to feel like absolute crap when sick, given our sex hormones and response to pathogens, whereas women's immune systems will respond more aggressively with less symptoms due to higher levels of estrogen. So basically, man flu is real, and to avoid being made fun of, this is why I disappear in my house for 2 days at a time, existing as a gremlin whenever I'm sick. And then I just keep making YouTube videos, and then I tell you guys I'm sick, and then everybody's like, oh, why is Roanoke always sick? I'm not always sick. Knock on wood, I haven't been sick for a year, I think, at this point. I get common colds. I go out and have fun. Sue me. So the point of all of that, when SoundCloud is showing his own symptoms, it's a multi-pronged issue as he drank the water first, and his body naturally will have a stronger response to the pathogen's presence, which is why he looks sweaty all the time. And this is, as you may have guessed, indicating an actual honest-to-God immune response is taking place. Now the question is, what sort of pathogen is he actually responding to? As always, when we look at what it could be in the groundwater, we can shift our thinking to, well, what's in the permafrost? Permafrost being a permanently frozen layer of ground soil, as opposed to other not ground soil, anyways. But no matter the time of year, unless exposed to the atmosphere, it holds many microbes and viruses stuck there in stasis that otherwise would have not broken free. I've mentioned it several times in other videos, so I'll be brief here, but essentially megaviruses that we have found have been released in the past from this frozen layer, which is hypothesized. That is why we are now finding those same viruses in the oceans today. Is it dangerous? Possibly. Is it horrifying? Yes, mainly because we aren't even 100% sure what these type of viruses are even capable of in the first place. The reason is, if you take the common cold, which I love the common cold, we go way back, it has about a little over 1,000 base pairs of genetic info in which its entire existence is based upon this. Yes, the common cold sucks, but after a few days, as long as you're not immunocompromised, you will feel better and your body will destroy the pathogen as it is designed to do. However, with megaviruses, the largest one we have found is known as megavirus chilensis, which has 1,259,197 base pairs. I know I'm rehashing from the last video, but it's important to realize that these viruses are out there, and they have a ton of genetic info. And whenever we find a new virus, if we're around it too much, it always seems to jump to us. Not always, but swine flu, the last one of 2020, SARS, all that stuff. It's kind of crappy, but the question is, why? Why would chilensis have so much genetic information? Well, if they're just using cells to build themselves, it should kind of run that, they don't really need this much, so what's going on here? Well, as we know, genes are life, and these genes are coding for abilities that the virus actually has. Things like aminosyl tRNA synthase, which was thought to be exclusive in cellular life. It's not anymore. It's in viruses. So clearly, we know now it's not just a life thing, which means, arguably, it's a bit alarming if viruses that we are finding are completely shifting everything we know about life in the first place, but that's the nature of the beast. The more we learn, the more uncomfortable truths we are going to discover. Kind of beats putting your head in the sand, I suppose, and getting nuked by, super bubonic plague in the future. Anyhow, so now that we have kind of set up as to what is actually going on, we're going to get even more in depth here in a second, but I think we need to establish, this is all stuff you probably know, but this pathogen is most definitely a virus of sorts. One from underground that clearly does not do well on the surface, given we don't really have a bunch of people fused together up here running around, so it is exclusive to subterranean life. It also does not appear as though it is intrinsic to humanity, given it did infect dogs as well and then combined them, so it's not really necessarily looking for specific cellular markers that it can latch onto. Instead, I would imagine this thing, like some viruses are known to just straight pierce cells, this thing is just straight up piercing a cell. So what we are seeing is very likely a virus with a massive genetic profile, but along with that, the drives of any animal amplify what the virus is already trying to do, sort of like being drawn to one another. With the dogs, it was a pack mate, but with humans, it's your significant other. But the question is, how is the virus actually doing this? And if you're a furry, I guess it's also a pack mate, but God. Well, anyway, so how it's actually doing this is horrible, I can tell you from that. And we actually see this in another virus that is an absolute bitch. Watching this movie, you'd be inclined to think, wow, this is insane. This could never happen. But there's already a medical term for this. And I'm not talking about like conjoined twins or something that happens within the womb due to separation issues. I'm talking about you standing there not having this issue. Well, it's kind of an issue. It could be an issue if you become infected and then you now have this issue, which hopefully none of you will ever have this issue, because honestly I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but this is known as syncytia or syncytia, but I'm gonna go with syncytia because that appears to be medically what most people use, but it's a weird name, and to a degree it does exist within humanity's skeletal muscle system for this like very specific purposes. For instance, the more muscle you build, just in a way to kind of help the muscle, on a cellular basis, have more capability to become multinucleated. But we have found after contracting HIV in particular, people will develop this strange symptom. What happens is when a virus infects your cells, it can leave a sort of viral residue on the cell membrane. When it does this, it will make the cell incredibly sticky, and that's how the virus attaches itself to the cell. When another cell comes along, it may get stuck to that residue, and given it's all just a phospholipid bilayer, they will then combine together to form a double nucleated cell. Along with that, all the organelles will be doubled up, and you essentially have a cell with two nuclei. Now, if there are more cells with this viral residue nearby, they can then run into this double cell, causing a triple cell to form, and then so on and so forth. Now, you may wonder, well, why don't people with HIV just become one giant cell? This is not sustainable. A human cell is not supposed to be that large with that many conflicting messages internally with genes all trying to do different things, so it can lead to this new mega cell to malfunction and basically either turn cancerous at a certain point or just straight up die. And given how HIV is also ransacking the immune system, none of this is great. So be careful out there and wear a rain jacket. But now we know the process by which cells could fuse. What are we seeing with Millie Rocking and SoundCloud? Upon their infection being assured, I believe the virus will invade every cell in their body. No cell is left untouched by this infection, as it would need to do several things in order to make this process work. First, the immune system would almost certainly need to be dismantled. The reason is you have self-identifying complexes on your cells, so your immune system can identify self. These are known as multi-histocompatibility complex, or MHC. So first, the virus upon invading your cells, when hitting the T cells, may disrupt the cell surface so much, like in the rest of the body, preventing the T cell from actually being able to identify any cell of its own ability to do so, that it's, I guess, been totally screwed with. So now the question is, what long-term effect is there? Well, we'll see this later, that a fusion of a person is the ultimate goal, but at first their immune system would be aware of the viral presence and would begin launching countermeasures. However, these countermeasures would also be invaded by the virus itself and begin changing their abilities based on the cell membrane manipulation. As this process continues, the cell membrane itself may have issues sticking together. Either that or the connection itself would really kind of take on a more loosey-goosey sort of holding on. Cells stick together through specialized cell junctions to the extracellular matrix. And the big three are tight junctions, which are basically leak-proof between the cells, and this is why you don't bleed out. Desmosomes, which kind of act like spot wells to hold the cells together. And gap junctions, which do form channels between cells, but they reach across in other areas and other cells are connected through tight junctions and blah, blah, blah. It's not really blah, 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 it's biology, you should be learning this, but these areas hold strong. And this is why we can go and pick up a dumbbell or lift ourselves up without our arms falling off and it'd be kind of gross. But what I imagine is happening here is a lot of these bonds are either weakened as the surface of the cell itself is altered. It is not completely destroyed because the body is still staying together, but this is kind of just the first step in this process. Given that the virus invaded these cells and began altering their grasping integrity, viral residue would likely be left over, allowing for syncytia to take hold. However, the virus's purposes and goals, they're kind of beyond our understanding now, but it kind of always goes back to the same idea. Like, you can apply this to everything, and it is survival. Ask yourself, why double up a person or an animal? Well, consider the positives when you talk about survival. The body would be much stronger with almost the double amount of muscle present, at least for a little while, which, is the largest positive. More neural connections, if some tissue is not fully combined, literal double bone density in some respects, also all the nutrition of that body are coming in, and just the level of genetic splicing, making someone almost entirely confusing to any new form of pathogen that could arise, which we also know, given the hypothesis that 8% of the human genome are ancient viruses, those do protect us, at least in some capacity, from modern day viruses, which is rather interesting because they probably completely screwed people back in the day. So let's discuss how deep this process goes for a moment before getting into the ultimate outcome. As a person becomes more deeply infected, it's clear the body will begin to take on its own wants and needs. While the brain can control it during the day for the most part, once the brain switches into sleep mode, the unconscious, wants of the body are still very much so present. So as the virus has invaded every cell, this includes muscle cells. What it seems like to me is this is sort of a two-pronged requirement. The first is the brain itself must want the individual, and this creates a link between them neurologically, indicating some sort of compatibility. Given this thing affects couples, it is likely then felt on the other side as well. The virus is inhabiting both the hosts at this point, so interacting with the genetics of the cell, but also importantly, the brain of the person as well. This would compel them to seek closeness with the other infected host. As the infection continues, the barriers between cells of different hosts will break down further, and the immune system will no longer reject the foreign cells if fusion is initiated. And this is critical because the virus must infect all cells if it wants the fusion to go correctly. However, it's very likely that it does not succeed in this process when it comes to the brain itself, because it seems like when the fusion does actually happen, memories are still shared. And as we all know, memories within the brain are actually just firing patterns within the brain. So when the brains fuse together, very likely some neurons would be combined, but other patterns from the previous host would still exist. Anyways, but when it comes to the immune systems, the host immune systems would read the MHC on their partner cells as foreign if all of their cells were not invaded. And one of the interesting aspects of this is a lot of neurons don't even have MHC on them. So when the other cells, which are not neurological, are invaded and then changed, this would kick off a cytokine storm if they weren't, because the MHC would be wrong and the immune system would be responding, something similar to like organ rejection. There was a guy, he never went through with it because he actually ended up finding love, which is, here I am. I'm not making this dude. The point is that what happened was he basically, his body didn't work. I think he had ALS. It was a Russian guy, if I remember correctly, and a Russian doctor wanted to kind of do a head transplant. And one of the biggest fears they had is that what if the donor body literally rejects the head? Like, what happens? So he would have been on massive immunosuppressants for the rest of his life, because if the body rejected the brain, I mean, it would kill you, pretty much. Like, I don't even know what that would feel. Nobody knows what that would feel like, essentially, so it is absolutely crazy. But he ended up finding a girlfriend, like, I think a couple of months before they were supposed to go through with the process, so then, you know, he was able to go off and do well. So, I guess I'll just sign up for a head transplant at this point and, I don't know, find a girlfriend or something. But as the virus inhabits the muscle cells, eventually a tipping point is reached. The draw of the other person on a neurological basis will begin to bleed into the muscle, at least, again, so to speak. Not to mention, at the behest of the virus seeking another compatible host who is also infected, it will begin the process of physically drawing them together in order to combine. Again, though, you're probably asking, how? Well, given that the virus is clearly going to house a ton of genetic information because of how extensively it has to change the body without leading to its own end, I would say muscular control is really not all that difficult. The virus itself is already in the central nervous system, meaning it now controls the motor neurons as well. When not actively thinking about staying away, your nervous system will be compelled by an already natural behavior to be close to someone that you care about. That is the draw that you feel towards somebody just standardly that you actually like. And if they like you, there you go. You combine each other. If you guys part ways and all that good stuff, you still feel that draw, but now it's like, God. So basically, this virus will have to reach a level where it will indicate to the neurons to fire to the muscle, which will begin the process of undulation. And this is why it is so completely unnatural, as it's not likely your primary motor cortex or cerebellum in your brain controlling the movement, but your spinal cord operating and firing due to the viral infection. And this comes together to begin the process of fusion, which is where everything goes absolutely insane. During this process of fusion, it's important to realize this is a multinucleation issue, but even then, it's highly likely the nuclear envelopes of the cell itself will eventually fuse. At first, your body literally reaches into another person's body, and this is possible as the cell junctions have begun to break down, going from something like a solid to like a non-Newtonian fluid, except I guess the other direction. A solid, when introduced to certain forces, then becomes more like a liquid, probably viral presence. Now, would this be painful? I don't see how it couldn't be, to be honest, but I mean, you're still having to bypass through neurons and pain receptors, but clearly this wouldn't feel great, I don't think. So as the process continues, the viral residue on the cells would then adhere to the new incoming cells, and those new incoming cells would adhere to the, I guess, standard host cells. But given they are invading each other's body equally, there's really no level of who was here first, it's just an equal invasion of the meat suit. Shortly after this process starts, it would then take time, but the cells fuse together, not fighting it decreases the time needed for it to actually complete. The couple in the cave appeared to be fighting it. Millie Rocking and SoundCloud just kind of gave up and let it happen. The cells fused together, slowly decreasing the number of cells from the average male and average female amount of cells respectively, being 36 trillion and 28 trillion, to kind of combine the number, probably at first to like 64 trillion, which would then make their bodies absolutely massive and deformed, as we have seen with the couple in the cave. And then as time goes on and they just don't fight it, or they don't get attacked like when Jamie did, which then changed his face, it's probably just an average amount of around 32 trillion. Larger than your average female, but smaller than your average male, which is what we actually see at the end when they answer the door. It is highly unlikely this process does not stop either at just multinucleating the cells. I doubt there are two defined nuclei, because again, when you get into syncytia, which is not healthy for any cell in any capacity, well, that's kind of a lie. Muscle cells can do it, but other cells are not supposed to do it. But you kind of move into the realm of actual combination of genetics. Much like standard crossover events in meiosis, which in turn creates genetic diversity apart from both parents, this can have physical effects on the actual physiology of a person as well. Some people look like one parent over the other, some may have more of a blended appearance. Neurologically, the same is also possible when it comes to how you may behave and what sort of mental issues you may or may not have. For instance, I look more like my mom, but I behave like my dad. My other brother looks more like my dad, but behaves like my mom. But the point is, when these cells combine, they actually begin fusing their very DNA. Now, what genes are lost and which ones are kept? Given the change in actual phenotypic presentation on observable appearance, this would indicate to me that since both of the traits are there in some capacity, there could be essentially both strands of DNA existing independently in the same nuclear envelope, with the genes being read and the cells behaving as normal. It's always, I guess, equally possible that maybe some genes would be randomly added and others would be randomly deleted as these genes themselves are combined, but I kind of doubt this is actually the process, as For a virus to accomplish this as neatly as it does and create a functional person, it doesn't seem possible. Not to mention, you need to talk about susceptibility. The purpose of this fusion needs to be talked about in the first place. If the two sets of DNA exist within the cell like I am proposing, you can kind of think of it like, imagine all the immunological memory this new body would have. Think of how certain genes that may protect against cancers or other infections in one partner may now protect the body in one way, while other genes they may have lacked or are created by the other partner's genome to protect the body. Say like, okay, best way to put it, take sickle cell, right? If one parent has sickle cell and the other parent does not have sickle cell, and those genes get passed along, you actually have a resistance to malaria, but you do not have anemia. But if both parents have sickle cell anemia, then you have sickle cell anemia, and it's really, really bad for your body. If no parents have any sickle cell traits, then that means you are now susceptible to malaria. It's kind of a similar thing. If you combine two people, like one that has sickle cell traits and one that does not have sickle cell traits, then now you are more resistant to malaria if your bodies were to fuse, and you wouldn't have to worry about possibly having the actual anemic portion. But the process actually does make a lot of sense as to why it wants to combine. This is essentially just somatic bodies engaging in meiosis with one another and sharing genes, and then rather than creating a new life out of it, which would be offspring, their bodies fuse, and they now become the new life themselves at the behest of the virus, which apparently, behest is now my new favorite word. But anyhow, I want to thank you guys for watching. Do you believe someone like this would even be viable? Not to mention the immense pressures put on the body at first to try to keep this new meat suit fueled until the body absorbs itself correctly. The metabolic requirements would be immense. Let me know down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, and channel links in the description. Speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. At the astronaut tier, we have Kusith, I'm pretty sure. Thank you, all, dude, for your awesome support. At the astrophysicist tier, we have Death Dancer. Thank you as well, sir. And at the full-fledged scientist tier, we have Stutz, Frank Shaftcrank. I actually love electric cars. The Anglerfish, Metric System, Invictus Echo, and Official Texan. And to the rest of my patrons, I do appreciate y'all's support as well. It was a long way towards helping out, so thank you. But all right, guys, well, that's going to do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see y'all in the next one.